Greetings and salutations. This is Abdelhadi with The Bitter Truth, where we may not have all the answers, but we're going to ask an awful lot of questions. You can also become a bitter pill or a spoonful of sugar, and soon to be the new tier. You could be a medicine going down for the price of a latte and a scone by visiting patreon.com/The Bitter Truth. Today, I've got a guest, a friend of the show, has been on before, Mike Mahony. He has been a candidate in the past for public office. He's run as a Libertarian in Orange County for several different seats. He's also a host of the show The Nightly Rant, which, unlike me, is nightly, which is awesome because he's not lazy and I am. So there you go. Mike, how you doing, buddy?
Doing good. You know, I was checking back on something, and it's been over a year since we've sat down and had a chat like this.
Okay.
It's about damn time.
It's about goddamn time. It's been too long. I just hit me the other day. I was going, God, I haven't talked to Mike in a while. I was like, you know, why? Shit, he's just come back on the show. There's been plenty happening. It's not like we
the world has changed.
The world has changed, man. I hope we start changing back. I mean, 1918 didn't last forever, right? Eventually, they kind of moved forward. They wore masks back then too, right? So, I've seen some different documentaries, and eventually they stopped doing it. So I'm hoping, you know. Although, little side note. You know, I used to have to pay for a girl to wear a mask, and now I get it for free. So that's so there's that bonus to the. You know, I used to pay for that action. Now I get it for nothing. I'm kidding.
Saving money.
I'm not subjecting women. I'm a nice person. I don't do that.
Saving money at every corner.
Saving money.
You know, when you asked me to come on, you said, what do you want to talk about?
Yep.
And so I'm gonna try to find a politically correct way to say what I want to say.
Oh, fuck that. No. Just say it.
Because it's so sensitive.
Sure.
But, I'd like to talk about this Black Lives Matters movement, but not just really the movement. I feel like there's two parts to that issue. There's the movement, which I 100% am behind. 100% I'm behind it. But the organization, in my opinion, is a piece of crap. And I think that, I'll kind of summarize for you what I think, and then we can go from there. I think that they purposely set up an organization that wasn't really an organization, so they can stand behind, like, well, if that chapter over there commits acts of violence, we can say, well, we're not for that. But meanwhile, they're kind of silently clapping behind the scenes. I mean, you got the funding, where the funding comes from is suspect.
Well, wait, before you
crazy.
Before you get into the laundry list, because you mentioned that when we were emailing back and forth. And I did look up some. I couldn't find acts of violence performed by I can't even talk today. Black Lives Matter. I didn't find any, actually. I found Antifa crap.
So you don't recall when, after the Ferguson riots, them calling for people to go out and kill police officers? Like that was something
I didn't find any of that.
And it's interesting because two of the original organizers, Opal Tometi and Patrice Colliers, they both want to abolish the police and prisons. Want them gone.
but that was like 5-6 years ago. Where they're at now, and I have no issue with defunding the police, because between the crime bill that Joe Biden got passed in 1994, which he co-authored during the Bush years and couldn't get it passed under HW, but got it passed under Clinton, and the NDAA, which when Obama renewed it in 2011, he gutted habeas corpus and posse comitatus. So, for example, when Trump pulled that fucking stunt at the St. John's Church, everyone was like, how could he do that? Well, because you just gave the dictator's toolbox to a toddler, right? If you
yes.
gut posse comitatus, now he could use the army as his own personal police force, which is what he did at St. John's Church. And he walked up there, and did you notice he held up the Bible and not the Constitution? Just saying.
Well, it's an election year.
I know, but fuck that, man. Hold up the you know what? There's this old. I'm going to take a sidestep really quick, and then get back into your point. There's this old movie that George Clooney directed about 8-9 years ago, probably longer, called The Ides of March. And Beau Willimon, who ended up doing the American version of House of Cards, this was a play he did, and he got it made into a movie. Anyway, there's this great scene where the George Clooney character is given his stump speech in the debates. And if I saw a guy do this, I would vote for him, not even knowing what his policies are. He goes, I don't care what you think of me. I'm not a Muslim. I'm not a Jew. I'm not a Christian. I'm not a Buddhist. The religion I have is the Constitution of the United States. And I'm going, fuck yeah, that's awesome. I would vote for that guy. Nobody ever does that. Because if you do that, they think you're trying to trample on their whatever, the Bible or whatever. The Constitution should be preeminent above anything. Anyway.
Well, but then like with this whole BLM thing, like I actually had a long discussion with a young guy, like he was about 22 years old, and I've known him since he was like a year old. And he was shaming people for not, white people specifically, for not posting about BLM on social media. And I said to him, some people aren't comfortable posting about this topic, and shaming them into doing it. What's your victory? So they start posting about things they don't really agree with. Like, why would you do that?
Right.
But that's just where this kind of movement, I mean, it's becoming a political party, first of all. And now they're starting to call BLM the American Communist Party because of the way they're acting. They want to rewrite history. They want to, tear down all these statues. And what the fuck is that about?
But hang on a second. And just a real piggyback on your original point about the violence, whatever those guys did in Ferguson, I think they've evolved into not, it's like Sinn Féin of the IRA. They became the political arm of the IRA. And so I think with these guys, I think whatever violence they were calling for 5, 6, 7 years ago, I don't see them doing it in this recent fracas.
Do you see them condemning the violence that's going on? I mean, you got CNN. There was a CNN reporter. The first thing I've ever heard the orange clown, that nightmare, say, I purposely watched his stupid rally the other night because I swore to God he was going to announce that they were going to invade Chaz and take back the country of Chaz and bring it back to the United States. And so I was waiting for that. My son will tell you, we watched it for that one reason and one reason only. And the one thing he said, and I actually saw this on CNN, there's a CNN reporter, and behind him, this building is on fire, and he's like, it's very peaceful out here. The protesters are very peaceful. No acts of violence. And the building's burning. Like, how come? And here's the mantra. If you dare say people shouldn't be rioting and looting and burning down buildings, then they say, oh, well, property and human life cannot be equated. Well, you're not wrong about that. But
I agree. I agree with that in principle. But also, too, I understand if you want to make an omelet, you're going to break more than a few eggs. The Revolutionary War, bit messy. It was a bit messy.
But hey, if your movement is supposed to be peaceful,
but the protesters. I was in Austin. The protesters are not looting, and by the way, the cops aren't catching looters. They're shooting protesters with rubber bullets, flashbangs, tear gas. They're running over people. They're beating the shit out of civilians who haven't done jack except for stand there. I've seen video after video of this shit. Meanwhile, looters. And how many videos have you seen of guys dressed in riot gear breaking windows? More than a handful of videos I've seen of that shit. And Antifa, I would not be surprised if the FOIA shows up, the Freedom of Information Act, in 2 or 3 years. Some journalist is going to get it and show us that Antifa was a bunch of CIA guys leading a bunch of dumb kids who had a danger level about the level of the Boy Scouts, and then they just got up to the brown shirts in the Weimar Republic. You know what I mean?
I agree with you on that because I saw a photograph. It was one of those that's done in a grid with 9 people on it, and they were like the 9 most wanted Antifa criminals, they called them, from the Pacific Northwest. And it basically looked like a punk rock concert that I've gone to in the 80s. Like it literally did. And I thought, no, these guys are not the leaders. They're someone's guiding them and pushing them in that direction. But here's the thing, okay? At what point I shouldn't put it that way. How did we get to the point where we have the right to peaceably assemble? What makes it that the police can just say, all right, we've had enough. This is over. You need to disperse. Because
that's the bigger question. Well, that's the bigger question over the looting, honestly.
Because the problem is that the violence against the protesters from the police is happening because the police believe that all they have to do is issue an order that this is no longer a lawful assembly and you have to leave.
Right.
And you have to leave. I mean, I can tell you, I protested in Huntington Beach on May 1st, and we were not protesting to get haircuts, and we were not protesting to go get a massage, and we were not protesting to open the bar so we could go get a beer. We were protesting because so many people's livelihoods was being destroyed by being closed, while meanwhile big corporations were wide open, and that's bullshit. Like, you should not. If I sell the same product as Target, why is Target open and I'm closed? It doesn't make any sense. So we were protesting that, and we actually had the Huntington Beach Police met with us and they told us, well, when we tell you it's time to disperse, it's time to disperse. And several of us said, if we're standing there and we're peacefully protesting,
what's the deal?
Why are you going to tell us to disperse? I mean, you don't get to say when the protest is over. Well, I think those police officers respected that because they did things like they closed down a lane of PCH so that we could push out into the street a little bit. Mm-hmm. They respected our space. They didn't get in our face. But at the same time,
this was before George Floyd, before they got real hot.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and that's another topic. I don't see how anyone could see that video and look the other way. Some of the racist comments that I see coming out of that make me sick to my stomach, because anyone who saw that and thinks everything is okay, they're sick in their head. Seriously.
Well, and this is the hypocrisy. When Philando Castile got shot, right? That guy was a registered gun owner. He was reaching into his glove box, telling the officer the entire time. I've seen that video a few times, unfortunately. And that he's reaching for his permit because he was licensed to carry a piece. So he was shot by a cop as a registered gun owner. Where was the NRA on that? The NRA should have been all over that. Yeah. The NRA and every Second Amendment guy should have been all over that, instead of saying, well, he shouldn't have broke the law. What fucking law did that guy break? Well, and there's a million of these snuff films. There's a million of their snuff films. They are like Faces of Death when we were kids. Remember that VHS, Faces of Death? Yeah. That's exactly what this is like. Every fucking 2 months, there's 20 or 40 of these things. And not to mention the ones that we don't see, the Breonna Taylors of the world or the Freddie Grays of the world, who mysteriously have a broken neck while they're handcuffed, but they killed themselves. And I'm like,
well, but see, here's the problem that I have with all of this. I mean, as far as my philosophy goes, I'm a pretty logical person. And I had to figure out, how do I overcome the fact that there are situations that I've never experienced but actually do happen? Because, our natural reaction to things is, if you've had nothing but positive interactions with the police, you don't believe the negative interactions that you hear about. It's just doesn't make sense to you. So what I decided was, it's kind of like the Me Too movement. If the person says it happened and I have no solid evidence to the contrary, I'm going to believe them.
Sure.
I'm going to listen, I'm going to hear what they say, and I'm going to support them. And I've had friends that I flat out tell, all right, I'm going to be behind you on this. But if I find out you lied, I'm going to be on the other side of this, asking for you to go to jail. You just remember that. And with the police situation, we hear about it all the time. We hear about how, if you're in a less fortunate neighborhood, you get harassed by the police all the time. If you're black and you go into a store, the store follows you around because they think you're going to shoplift. All of that is crap and shouldn't happen. But it all kind of goes back to how we keep giving the police more and more authority. I mean, I've never trusted the police because I've had run-ins where someone's family member is friends with a police chief, and so the next thing, officers are harassing somebody that person doesn't like. That's just wrong. It's corruption.
Right.
And I'm totally against anything that's fraudulent or corrupt. But at the same time, I feel like this, you used the word earlier, defund the police. I think that needs to be defined, because does defund the police mean what some people, there's basically, when you talk to the entire group of people who believe in defund the police, you get two answers. Either defund the police means get rid of the police, or defund the police means take back some of the money that they're using on military grade weapons and give it to other social issues. I agree with that part. But getting rid of the police entirely is never going to work, because what happens is now we have vigilante justice. And that, to me, is pretty much as bad as anything the police could ever do.
Sure. And to your point, I agree with you. I mean, if the world was perfect, we wouldn't have doctors or comedians or cops. So there's that. I mean, but
exactly.
But the challenge that we've seen, and I work with law enforcement in my day job. I've worked with law enforcement quite a lot for about a decade. And I've been in that room, but I wasn't in that room as a long-haired musician. I was in that room as a middle-aged, bald white guy with a jacket on. So I look like, and by the way, just FYI, you're Mike Mahony. Mike Mahony doesn't have the same challenges that a guy with my name has. Okay, that just being honest. I got a buddy named
100%.
My friend's John Smith, or I won't name names because they're my buddies, but I mean or Chris Jones or whatever. When I go to the airport, I get randomly selected for additional screening about 2 out of 6 times, 2 out of 5 times, right? And I know it's going to happen, and they're going to take my computer, and they're going to ask me if I pack my own bags. It's like being in Israel. They're going to, hey, did you pack your own bags? Did you have your eye on them the whole time? And it's like, wow, okay, cool, I get it. Because I got the long Mustafa falafel name, I accept that. So but the thing is, and to your point, because folks that I talk to on the left, the real left now, not this Hillary Clinton bullshit, but the real left, most of them are not about, quote, defund the police. And I've seen like articles that these guys would write, and it's like reallocate some of the funds, like you're saying.
For sure.
And also, I wrote an article for Texas Free Press out here a few weeks back listing some things we need to do. And, they have college degrees. These guys aren't dumb, right? 30% of them have a bachelor's. 50% of them have some kind of a 2-year or equivalent. 5% of them have a master's degree. So it's like 85% of these guys have a degree. So what you want to do is start, challenging the psych evaluations. You don't not hire a guy because he's got too much compassion and empathy, right? And then you also change the culture of permissiveness. So it's not like fucking Serpico. If you do report a gang rape in a jail, you're not going to get shot in the face. I saw an interview about a month ago with a cop who was doing the voice disguiser digital thing.
Yeah.
And he quit a few years back. This is before all this really got going. And he quit because 4 or 5 years prior, he'd reported a jail rape. He saw an officer rape a woman in her cell. She got busted for DUI, and he raped her. Right? So he reported it, and he wasn't very subtle about it. I guess he didn't know how to do it. So he got caught. So the word was out. It was gonna be like a Tim T or a Pat Tillman kind of a thing, where every time he went on a raid, he'd fall back. Oh yeah, I got the rear, because he didn't want to get ahead. Because if he got ahead, he'd get shot in the head. And he knew it.
They're going to sacrifice him.
Yeah. And so when people say, oh, there's a bunch of good cops. Yeah, but if you're not reporting this shit, you're not a good cop.
Exactly. Like the George Floyd thing. How in the hell did those other officers allow that guy to lean his knee on his throat for 9 minutes and never once push him away, pull him off,
right?
Nothing, didn't say anything. So like there's people, I've heard many people say, well, yeah, that officer should go to jail, but the others should not. I don't agree with that.
It's accessory to murder.
You stood there and watched. But I'll tell you something, Abe, I totally understand, like this white privilege thing drives me crazy because first of all, I didn't ask to be born white. I was just lucky. I won the lottery.
But here's the thing, but would you trade places with a black guy?
No, I wouldn't. But that's there
you go.
But that's I truly admit that that's there. I do. I admit that's there.
That's all it is. That's all. I'm not going to take a knee and wear chains and do all the stupid shit these guilty liberals are doing. But to not say there's white.
But here's the thing, though. You have other experiences that happen. Like you're right. I don't get stopped at the airport because of my last name, but my wife is 26 years younger than me. And
beast. Dating, now you're just rubbing salt in my single-ass, middle-aged, bald wound. I got nobody to love me. But no. Continue.
But you're going to love this. When we were dating, you go to first of all, people don't understand how powerful border agents are at every country. Mm-hmm. They know everything about you. And literally, like I can give you one example. One time I went through the border and I was starting a new contract in like 2 weeks. They asked me, so are you still working at? And they named the place where the contract was going to be. Now, the way they knew that was that I had to go through a sheriff's background check.
Right.
And so it was on the record. But anyway, you get there, you show them your passport, and they say, oh, you got to go to secondary. And then you go to secondary and they say, oh, so why are you here? I'm here to visit my girlfriend. Oh, okay. What's her name? And then you give them the name and they type it in. Now they see her record and they see my record and they see the age difference. You want to know what the dude did? Come in the back with me. You got a computer in there? Yeah. Is there any child porn on there?
Whoa!
Why? I'm in a t-shirt and jeans. I look like a normal guy. Why do you think there's child porn on my computer? You think there's child porn on my computer because I'm dating somebody who's 26 years younger than me.
But she's not. She wasn't 8 years old.
They kept me there for 4.5 hours.
Oh my God!
They went through my phone. They went through my computer. He literally came out, and I'm stupid, but I'm also, but it's just me. He's like, you were this close, and he puts his fingers together to getting sent back to the United States. Well, and I go, why? What did you see on my computer or my phone that made you, well, I don't need to tell you that. Well, that's because there's nothing, you can't tell me that because there ain't nothing on my computer or my phone that would send me back to the United States. You're full of crap. That's what I told him. Right. And he goes, you better not talk to me that way because I could just, I have the power to just send you back. I understand you have the power, but I can also sue you for, you're going to have to provide the evidence of why I'm going back. And I could sue you for that.
Now, this was
just leave. It was a Canadian border agent.
Okay.
Canadian border agent.
That was my question. All right.
And so I've experienced, and that's when I started thinking, okay, if I were to tell somebody else that I had this experience, they might not believe me. What do you do? How do you get it to the point where you hear other people? Like, I really don't like the culture today of just because someone's accused of something, they must be guilty of it. I don't like that at all.
It's been that way a while.
Like it. Yeah. I like it better back in the 70s and early 80s when, it was the accused and the accuser, and they didn't mention names. Now it's like the media's in a hurry to mention who the person. They
don't even say alleged anymore. Like,
right.
Half the time they don't even say alleged anymore. I mean, okay, Harvey Weinstein, you kind of knew he did it. I mean, 20 years ago, I was in that business. Sure. I knew he did it, but yeah, alleged is a nice word until the guy gets a conviction.
Well, right, and so you say to yourself, how do I reconcile knowing that things like this happen in the world with the fact that I've never experienced it? Because you're right. I don't have your last name. And I can only imagine, like, because of that and with all this terrorist stuff going on, that they're like, uh-oh, this guy has a Middle Eastern sounding name. We better pull him aside.
Are you kidding? My first name is Ibrahim, right? Every time there's a goddamn terrorist, it's like 4 of those guys have my fucking name. Why don't you change your name to Phil before you do your thing so I can get to the airport, asshole? And
exactly. Make it easier for you. They're not thinking about you.
They're not thinking about my needs or my cousin's needs. But here's the thing, though. In all seriousness, I pass for white, though. So I get along most of my life, most of the day. I got buddies out here. I got black friends out here, middle-class guys like our age. They wear like sports shirts and they golf, and their names are like Sam and Bob and whatever. They're not like, it's not little Ray, with his pants down his ass. He drives a Lexus. He's got kids. And he once or twice a month they'll get followed home for a mile by the cop. And when they finally get stopped, the guy's like, "Oh, you get license registration? Well, why am I being stopped? Well, just give me your license." And they do that shit. And then they'll say, "Oh yeah, we just want to make sure you live here." Well, why wouldn't he live here? He's not driving a '64 blue Impala that bounces up and down, with his pants hanging off his ass. He's a fucking middle-aged insurance guy or finance guy or an IT guy with a job. It's like you can't look at the guy in the eyes and know that he's like a regular Joe. You just driving by, you just got to stop him because it's really crazy. And so, we've been doing this for 400 years.
Well, but like to circle back to what started this, we talked about defund the police and what it means.
Right.
I've decided that I'm not going to run for office anymore. I'm just going to work on political strategy. So I'll work on people's political campaigns and help them with that. And part of why I decided I don't want to run for office is I ran a recall against an extremely corrupt city council member. The evidence is all there. Other city council members admitted to me in my face that they knew that she was corrupt, but it was in their best interest to protect her, so they did. So I don't want to be one of those bozos who has to protect some corrupt person in order to, get their legislation passed. I don't want that. But so I'll use my brain to do political strategy. And I'm telling you that first of all, this movement needs a leader. There is where's the Martin Luther King leading the call for this? There is nobody. Right. And the defund the police thing, they need to define the term better, because Martha, that's 72 years old in Wisconsin, she's going to say, "Get rid of the police? We can't do that."
Right.
But that's not really what the major message is. The major message is stop letting the police have all these crazy, military grade weapons, retrain the police. It needs to be done. It really needs to be done. When you got on both sides of the issue, I saw a video of officers were trying to drive through in an unmarked car, and the crowd stepped out into the street and started swarming the car, and they were moving like 1 mile an hour trying to get through there. And one guy was literally sitting on the hood of the car. Everyone dispersed, and they were telling him to get off, and they were slowly going. And then all hell breaks loose because some guy comes with a skateboard and smashes their windshield. Well, they're the police. Yeah, they're going to get pissed that someone smashed their windshield.
Mhm.
And they got out of the car, and they're like, who did that? Who did that? And then some guy got in their face, like punched one of the police officers. Strictly the aggressor, not the police. The crowd was the aggressor.
Sure.
Some guy the same guy with the skateboard hits the cop over the back of the head with the skateboard. All hell breaks loose. Now someone else watches the same video and they're like, you see how police brutality? Can you see the police brutality? And I say to myself, no, I don't. What I saw was police officers trying to not cause a problem. They had a dude on the hood of their car.
Right.
They didn't get out and like drag his ass off and arrest him. But that's one out of like 1,000 incidents where the other 999, they're, like you said, they're shooting rubber bullets at people. They're setting off flashbangs.
See, and
they're
a couple
using
things too.
tear gas that's illegal in war.
It's a war crime.
Why is it legal in cities, but
Well,
it's okay in war?
And this
not
is
okay in war.
And to your point, really quick, there's two things when you talk about defund the police. For example, I know for a fact there's at least 10 major cities that send their cops to Israel to train.
Uh-huh.
Now, I don't want the IDF training guys how to treat Palestinians in Gaza. And by the way, that knee move, the week that Floyd video came out, I must have seen, I don't know how many ex-cops coming on Fox and MSNBC and all these places. Oh, yeah. That's not an American police move. We don't do that in this country. We don't do that. Yeah. They do that in fucking Israel. That's an Israeli move. And I've seen that a million times. We got an IDF soldier on the neck of some Palestinian kid.
Yep.
And just scare the shit out of him. They're actually a little better at it. They don't kill the guy, and sometimes they do, And so it's like, but this is where I don't want my cops policing like they're in Kabul. And another thing too, if they had combat experience, I don't mean peeling potatoes in the green zone. Okay, I mean been shot at, watched his buddy get blown up by an IED, hanging out in Tikrit for 6 months. Okay, if that guy comes back to be a cop, no, he gets to jockey a desk. He gets to be the employee benefits guy. He gets to work. He's not going to be a cop. He's not going to be a patrol cop, because those guys, you roid them out and you give them weapons, and it's like a kid with a new toy. When you're 5 years old, you got brand new sneakers. You thought they made you run fast. You got them on, even though they were supposed to be your Sunday sneakers. You put them on anyway because you knew you're going to run faster. We're all boys at the end of the day. And you get these guys, and they're doing the white power salutes and all this shit in some of these videos. You're going, come on, man. And to your COVID protest point a second ago, you guys sound like you had a different agenda, which I respect. But those guys that were like marching up on the state capitals of Michigan and Minnesota, white skinheads armed with automatic weapons, semi-automatic weapons, and they get to take selfies with cops. Not an incident. Threatening the lives.
Change their color. It's a different story.
Right. It's like threatening the lives of legislators. It's like that Chris Rock joke. White guy shoots a gun, no problem. Black rapper says gun, Senate inquiry, right? And it is a color.
But it's both sides, though, Abe. As a country, we've gone insane. We've gone nuts. Like, you got people on one side saying, well, no, there's no problem with tearing down statues and lighting them on fire and beating up police officers and, rioting and looting. We don't have a problem with that. Then you got the other side going, anyone who ever does anything like that, I don't care what the circumstances are, they need to go to jail. I just don't agree. Like, okay, this is going to be kind of, I think, an unpopular opinion, but
whatever.
The Rayshard Brooks situation, I agree that he got a little aggressive and violent at the end. I do agree, but they had his car. They'd already run his ID. They'd already frisked him and knew he didn't have any guns. Let him run. Yeah. You're going to catch him.
Right.
And here's what I'm going to get. Here's where I'm headed with that. I used to watch, it's off the air now thanks to all this, but I used to watch Live PD on a regular basis. And I used to say to my wife, you never notice that on Live PD, you never see an officer like being aggressive with anybody. They're always very polite. And I said, yeah, it's because there's a damn camera on them. There's a saying. There's a saying, your character is who you are when no one's looking. And that's your character.
That's right.
If you are the guy that will steal a $100 bill off the table because no one will ever know it was you, well, then you don't have very high character. But if you're the guy that's going to be like, hey, I think you left a $100 bill out, you didn't mean to, that's your character. Yeah. Same thing with police officers. When a camera's on them, they're going to behave their best to the best of their ability. But That's how they should be behaving. They should be. I watched them. They had a car and a guy ran away. They tried to chase him and he got away. And then they're like, well, we'll try to catch him, but it's okay. We know where he lives. We know where he works. We'll find him. That's the attitude those officers should have had.
And to your point, though, so, like with when Dylan Roof shot up that church, right, the black church with 8 or 10 people, whatever it was, when he got arrested, quote unquote, without incident. And he got driven through a Burger King because the cops felt bad for him because they knew for the rest of his life he wouldn't have regular food. I'm like, whoa, if a black guy shot up a white church, okay, he'd have been shot, they'd have been afraid for their lives, and they would have found a gun, right? Yeah. Without question. And so this is kind of to the point, to your point, when the camera's on, how they behave, and the last month or so we've seen them not really give a shit when the camera's on. Another thing, Laquan McDonald in Chicago, if you're familiar with this case, former Barack Obama chief of staff, Rahm Emanuel, who's mayor of Chicago now, prick, absolute asshole prick, mayor of Chicago, total prick. He sits on the video for 10 months where the cop gets in front of the grand jury, I was afraid for my life. And then you see the video, the kid was running away and they pumped 16 rounds into his back. Now, the city of Chicago paid $5 million as a settlement to not go to court because they know if they got in front of a jury, they're dead. Way more than $5 million. And so all I'm simply saying is another thing, this isn't popular either, you take that money out of the pension.
Amen.
The taxpayer should not be burdened with paying for some reckless asshole where these spoiled, rotten babies, these mollycoddled toddlers get to do this stuff and expect the taxpayer to pick up the bill. That $5 million should come, and this is why. You and I both agree, I think, on this one topic for sure. We'll never legislate racism, right? I'm never going to sit there and control how a guy thinks or whatever. Right. But if I got his pension on the line, he could be a KKK wearing guy 7 days a week and bang his mother 9 times on Sunday. He will tap that guy on the shoulder when his knee is on someone's neck because now it's his ass, right?
Because the thing is, the whole purpose of laws in general is not, people say, why do we need more gun control laws? Criminals will be criminals and they'll get guns anyway. You're right, they will because they're criminals. But what it does is I believe in society, there's a small percentage of people who are going to be, commit crimes no matter what. And there's a small percentage who never will. And then there's the rest of us in between. But what keeps us honest is the fact that I don't know about you, but I don't want to lose my freedom and go to jail.
That's right.
So I'm gonna toe the line. Like if you're a truck driver, if you have to pay all the fines for speeding, you're not going to speed. But if your company has to pay all the fines for speeding and they can't fire you, well, at what point are you going to care? You're going to drive as fast as you want. Oh, got another ticket. Oh, well, they're going to pay. And that's what happens is you've got unions that protect the police officers. You got municipalities that pay the money in big dollars, pay it out.
Huge settlements,
cover them. And they never are affected. And so, all right, they lost their job. They got fired. So they'll get another job. They end up opening security.
It's called, and by the way, it's called lateral transfer.
Yeah.
Okay. These guys never leave the job. They're like priests. They get moved around from archdiocese to archdiocese. I mean, I worked with a ton of cops back in the day that were laterally transferred from another agency all the time. I never asked why. Oh yeah, we just bought a house here, whatever. And sometimes that might have been true. But the term lateral transfer is just a nice way of saying, yeah, well, I fucked up in so-and-so PD, and now I'm here. And that Derek Chauvin guy, he had 3 other incidents that he wasn't even indicted for. I mean, the one that A.D. Klobuchar fucked up on, I'll let it slide because he was being shot at. That's cool. I get it. You're being shot at. You got to do what you got to do. But the other 2, he should have at least been indicted.
But it all comes back. I was sitting here while you were talking. I was thinking about something, and it seems so painfully obvious. Things like make them pay out of pocket for this stuff. But the problem that we have is like with everything else in our society today, there are powerful special interests with a lot of money that don't want to see it that way. Right. And because they don't want to see it that way, we can fight and fight and fight, and it's not going to happen. And I mean, I'm going to go on record right now, as I've already told my wife this many times. At some point, there's going to be a civil war over this. There's
100%.
going to be, because people can't take it anymore, and they're fed up. And the only way you're going to defeat the big money is they're going to have to start a civil war and hope that they win. And then they become the government, and they can retool the government in a way. You know what I mean? Let's face it. Why did Trump get elected? Drain the swamp. Drain the swamp. Well, it's a great concept. He just, all he did was make the swamp swampier.
The swamp.
He made the swamp swampier,
He filled it up with John Bolton and Elliot Abrams and every slime bag that the GOP has coughed up for the last 40 years.
I can't stand that guy. And I think like saying stupid shit like, oh, I'm going to slow down the COVID testing so that the numbers don't look so bad. You're a moron. Like what's wrong with you? I can't even believe he thought that, let alone said it out loud. And the entire situation, it always, unfortunately, always comes back to this. Special interests have got control of this country, and we only do things that are in the favor of the special interests. If you're scratching my back, I'm gonna turn around and scratch your back, and I'm not gonna care whether you're a piece of crap or not. I'm gonna turn around and scratch your back. It's what I've experienced in politics. The lady I ran against for Board of Supervisors is running for what's his? I always forget his name. The guy, Dana Rohrabacher. She's running for Dana Rohrabacher's seat as a Republican, and she has his backing. She has Trump's backing, and that's why the lady had like close to $1 million in the bank, because she's been planning this move for a while. But she's done jack squat as a county supervisor. So what qualifies her to be a congressperson? Or like, I'm actually kind of interested to see, later today polls will close in New York, and we'll see if AOC made it through the primary or not. But like, that's a cuckoo lady that needs to go as well, because like, someone asked on Twitter, well, what qualified? She's so qualified because people know her name.
Oh my God.
Oh, but what did she do to get that qualification? Nothing. She's smart. She speaks out. She's got a big mouth, and so people.
Yeah, she's a hypocrite who will sell you out faster than Bernie Sanders at a toilet paper convention. Okay, so it's just like she had 3 weeks of anything meaningful, and it was when she took the Sunrise Movement when she was first elected, went into Nancy Pelosi's office and did a sit-in because she was trying to push this Green New Deal. That was the first 3 weeks. And after that, they were like the mafia. They took her in the back room. Yeah. They got her mind right. And by March of her first term, she was posing on Rolling Stone and Vanity Fair with the other sellouts with Nancy Pelosi. And now she calls Nancy Pelosi Mama Bear. Like, I'm sorry. You're not supposed to be cozy with these people. And you're not – okay, you've done it. I've never run for office. I managed a campaign back in the 90s for a buddy of mine who was running for city council Pasadena, but I never run before. And the one time I toyed with it a few years back for about 3 weeks, I realized I don't play well with others. This is not going to work. And
you and me both.
and the only way, unless you're like you and you got integrity, and then you got people forces marshaled against you, kind of a thing, because you're not going to play ball. Unless we change the inherent nature of this system, we're going to keep getting the same fucking thing. There's no way it's going to change. So the Greens and Libertarians can keep doing this, circular firing squad thing with each other and say that, so-and-so is not pure or whatever. But unless they get their shit together and take advantage of this moment of history, which almost happened a few years back, right? There's just so many things against people to actually run the government. And so you got to do it like what the French are doing, right? Like, for example, the French protests almost 2 years now. They didn't come out with this big laundry list of things. It was like one thing at a time. And when they got Macron to give in, okay, cool. Now here's the next thing. And they showed up every weekend like clockwork. And cars got flipped. And stores got.
Yeah, but one at a time. One at a time.
So
approach each issue.
Yeah. So with this BLM thing, if we get to the point where we do have true police reform, well, what's next? Say it, UBI, Medicare, whatever. But you protest for that shit until you get it. And you do what other countries do and make lobbying illegal.
Yeah,
we're the only industrialized world where it's perfectly legal. Lobbying is not called bribery; it's called lobbying, and it's perfectly legal.
That's a big one.
And we got to wrap up here in a couple of minutes. But even Trump, even a stop clock can tell the time right twice a day. When Trump came into office, his first thing was, if you've served public office, you can't lobby for 5 years. You can't join a firm for 5 years. I thought, whoa, what a great idea that is. Nobody. There's no bill in the House. There's no bill. There's no guy in the Senate going, that's a great idea. Let's, because if you're like Dick Grant or Dick Gephardt, you walk right out of the Senate when you lose your election, and you get a $2 million a year job for a pharma lobbying company.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, to what you're saying, it's 100% true.
And it's all related. It's the whole thing is related. Like you got Black Lives Matters, and like one of the things I didn't get a chance to mention is like their three biggest funding sources are George Soros, Rob McKay, who is like the heir of Taco Bell, and Democracy Alliance. And like, why is it that when you donate money to Black Lives Matters, it goes to a Democrat fundraising agency that takes 5% off the top? I mean, I want to see the money go to them and have them do what they want to do with their money, not be a puppet for any party. And that's the thing I say lately. That's a kind of common thing I say, any party, because I don't want to say the Democrats, because then people say, oh, you're a Republican. And I don't want to say the Republicans because they say, oh, you're a Democrat.
Well, that was going to be my next point. Is the Door Brothers and the Koch brothers and the Heritage Foundation, not to say that you guys are funded by these guys, but almost every one of these Open Up America movements, like to the website, to the state, were funded either by the Door Brothers, the Koch brothers, or the Heritage Foundation. And you click through their Facebook posts, and it goes right to a link. And the Door Brothers, if you don't know who they are, they think the NRA is too liberal. That's who the Door Brothers are. Yeah. So it's like, right. So it's just like, so to your point, and Soros, he'll always show up. But everyone talks about Soros. And I'm going, well, what about the goddamn Door Brothers and the Koch brothers? Those guys fund shit too. Right. It's like they're funding. This is the point, is they're funding things.
Well, that's the money and special interest that I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And that's what needs to be defeated. And unfortunately, I'm not sure in my lifetime that I'll actually see it happen, but I'm hoping that I see progress towards it. I mean, I will say this, I've said it, and I'm only going to say this on the air because he'll listen. But like my youngest son, I'm super proud of him because throughout all of this, he hasn't allowed anybody to sway his opinion one way or the other. He looks at each situation as like its own little myopic thing, and he makes a decision based off of that. And each of those things has become a building block towards his overall opinion. And I'm super proud of him because as a 16-year-old kid, it's easy to bow to pressure, and he's not. And so I feel like success. As a dad, I did something good and got him to think independently. Yeah. And I told him the other day, I said, I don't want you to think like dad. I don't want you to think like mom. I want you to think like Mitch.
Perfect.
That's who you are.
Right.
Think like that. End of story. So I don't know. I've had a good time talking to you today.
You too, man. Hey, listen, and wrap it up.
Let's not let an entire year go by.
No, man. Let's do another few. let's do it again in a few weeks because things are going to change. And as we're wrapping up, I saw a great Nietzsche quote the other day. There are two types of people in this world: those who want to believe and those who want to know. So it's like your kid
that says it all.
Your kid sounds like the latter. So
says it all.
Good job. Well, hey, listen, guys. My guest has been Mike Mahony. And again, his show is called the Nightly Rant. You can catch it on all the major podcast addicts, Spotify, doodah, name it. It's there. He runs a great show. It's not as long as mine, so you'll enjoy it better. And but listen, in wrapping up, again, patreon.com/thebittertruth. And if this stuff makes you uncomfortable, it's supposed to. Sleep tight.